Okay, so hello everyone. It's Nicole from HBCU 20x20, and we're extremely excited to host this lunch and learn, Should I Attend Graduate School? We're fortunate to have three amazing panelists who have not only attended an HBCU, but have also gone on to graduate school to share a little bit more about their experiences, how they have come to where they are today, how their HBCU helped inform where they went, and any additional tips that they may have. That being said, I'd like to have each of our panelists introduce themselves. I see it on the top, so I'm going to start with Jamya Robinson. If you don't mind, can you just share a little bit more about who you are and what you're doing today?
Hello, everyone. My name is Jamya Robinson. I am originally from Chicago, but I'm currently enrolled in a sociology PhD program at the University of Notre Dame, and I'm in my second year. So right now, I'm just working on my MA thesis, which focuses on the depiction of Black resistance in American history textbooks.
Thank you so much for that. Next, I'd like to go to Woomy. Woomy, you attended Clark Atlanta University, but I think that you're in the Big Apple now. So can you share a little bit more about what you have going on?
Oh, yeah. So, hey, guys, as Nicole mentioned, I am an alumna of the illustrious Clark Atlanta University, where I obtained my Bachelor's of Science in Mathematics with a minor in Computer Science. I am now a first-year master's student at Columbia University studying data science.
Thank you for that. And Calvin, I know that you're a double HBCU grad, which is amazing. Can you share a little bit more about your experience?
So my name is Calvin Sykes. I went to Florida A&M University, and I got my undergraduate degree in journalism, and then I stayed at Florida A&M due to the pandemic. And being graduate school is something I always wanted to do and where I felt comfortable. I eventually decided to stay in sports management and to further my athletic career, working with our athletics program and just building up my resume from that part. So that's kind of where my journey from graduate school kind of birthed itself, and then it helped me to get to where I am today.
All right, we got a rattler. Okay. So thank you for that, and thank you all for providing that introduction. My first question I'd like to ask is how your HBCU helped prepare you for graduate school. So from academic, from a personal, from a social standpoint, how has your HBCU helped shape what you're doing today? And we'll start with Woomy.
Okay, so as mentioned, I study data science at Columbia. And data science is like a relatively newish field. It's an interdisciplinary field that uses mathematics, comp sci, the social sciences, et cetera. And being a mathematics major with the comp sci minor, I originally thought I was going to do software engineering, but that didn't work out so well. So the AUC has a data science initiative where they host a number of data science panels. They have some courses, et cetera. And I remember right before the pandemic hit, I took a data science course through the math department. Lo and behold, here we are now. I've gained skills in R and SQL. And now in my graduate program, I'm like revisiting some of the same topics that I saw at CAU, specifically in my data structures and algorithms class. So.
Thank you for sharing that. And, it's always helpful because I know that I often say I haven't seen the quadratic formula used in real life. And then I saw an example. I was like, oh, I used it. Okay, so it's helpful to know that your experience at CAU, your coursework is also being seen in your graduate work too. I'd like to ask the same thing to Calvin. How did your HBCU prepare you for graduate school? So how did FAMU's undergrad coursework prepare you for the graduate program?
Well, luckily for me, my undergraduate was based upon like my creativity side and writing, taking ideas. So that kind of helped me a lot with the major papers that I was writing. One of my articles got published on just what I thought the future of HBCU athletics is, which I'm very passionate about. So I would say just the writing skills from the journalism program helped me gear towards what academic writing is, you know, a lot of research, writing what your findings is, and sometimes sprinkling your opinion on there based upon what you found. So that kind of skill self in itself kind of prepared me for what graduate school was like, and being able to also use my natural God-given talent to be able to speak in front of people and give presentations. So those were kind of the two main things that I felt like, and I still very much agree with that. Like my undergraduate degree helped me into where I am to achieve in graduate school.
Thank you so much for sharing that as well. And hearing that family provided that support for you to grow, you know, as an undergraduate student and as a graduate student. So thank you for that. And also unleashing like your passions and helping you tap into them even more. Jamya, I'd like to ask you the same thing. You attended Dillard University for undergrad. So how did that help inform the work that you're doing, or how did it help support you in your graduate program?
I feel so bad that I forgot to mention I graduated from Dillard, especially when I'm on a Zoom call with a fellow alumna. So Dillard really helped me in terms of like exposing me to other like Black researchers, other like Black people who are really passionate about sort of like social justice and like all these different things. Like as a first generation student, it was very important for me to see that kind of representation and kind of be exposed to some of those opportunities. And especially like as a cultural sociologist, I took a lot of like history classes. I took a lot of history courses. I took a lot of like interdisciplinary courses. I earned my bachelor's degree in urban studies and public policy. So, you know, sociology and urban studies and public policy aren't necessarily like the exact same discipline, but there is an emphasis on like interdisciplinary work. So the fact that I went to like a liberal arts college, specifically at HBCU, allowed for me to see the way that like Blackness is studied, like Blackness is represented in various disciplines, including like history, including like urban planning and public policy and all those things. So now that I'm at sort of this stage, like I'm in sociology, I'm able to see a lot of parallels between a lot of different disciplines, on top of being able to like network with other like Black scholars and like minority scholars and all those things, and kind of build that foundation that I really, really needed. Well, I still, you know, what I need right now as a student at like a PWI is like that mentorship. So, you know, being at a HBCU prepared me to do sort of like the scholarship that I need to do, but also have the support system that I needed even once I entered this space. So.
Thank you so much for each of you for just providing that insight into how your HBCU helped prepare you. Now I'd like to dive into grad school. What's been your favorite part of grad school? And I'll start with Calvin, then go Jamya, then go Woomy.
I think for me, it was more so focusing on what I wanted to learn. Because in undergrad, you kind of have a list full of classes. Some you have to take, some you don't. So being able to really talk about sports all the time, and not just look at it from, okay, you know, LeBron James goes out there and drop 40 a night, but what is the business behind it? What is, you know, the sponsors that they have on their jersey, how much that costs? How does that go into the organization? Learning about the business side of sport opened up my mind to where now I look at things a lot differently than I did from when I was an undergrad. And I would say that's my favorite part, really just talking about it and researching it and being able to like provide my opinion on different things where I thought they were wrong, right? Because everything is subjective, at least in the idea of sports. And really that was my favorite part, just being able to go to class every day and really talk about the business side of things and how sports works from a fan's view, then from somebody that literally makes money off of every time somebody steps on the court. So that was my favorite part.
That's an important part. And I think that that often kind of gets brushed under the rug when we think about graduate school, that it really is your time to focus on what you really want to focus on. So I'd like to hear from Jamya as well. You know, what's been your favorite part?
My favorite part, to sort of build off Calvin's point, is to be in like an intellectual community. You know, like a lot of people in grad school, they're like nerds by default. So it's kind of like that space to kind of build, I don't know, like your repertoire, like build sort of your knowledge on something that you're really interested in, and like be around other people who are interested in the same thing, or at least like something similar. So being in that space is great. Having the resources to pursue that is really important. So my favorite part about grad school is like the financial stability. For me, like especially like being in a PhD program, like it's fully funded. You don't have to worry about, and I know like some PhD programs are different, but like where you're going to get your money from, which is something that's like really important to me. So sort of like the financial resources that come with it, the mentorship, sort of like that scholarly community is really important. And something else that I don't think that people talk about, especially like being in a space of like the cultural capital, of like thinking about like you can apply for a fellowship and get like thousands of dollars. They don't even really know what you do. Like they don't even care what you do with the money sometimes. And I don't think that a lot of different fields allow you that kind of luxury to like have resources, or like be able to apply for a lot of these like prestigious opportunities, and then just not get them, but like, you know, just like get to that point. So those are some of my favorite parts about graduate school is the resources and the community.
Thank you for sharing that. I think that I know that many PhD programs are fully funded, but I also like that you shared that, you know, graduate school, you can apply for various fellowships, and, you know, it can become like an opportunity for you to have an extra bag while you're in school. But beyond that, really being able to be in community with people who understand your research or are eager to learn more about your research. Woomy, I'd like to go to you next. You know, what's been your favorite part so far?
What's been my favorite part? Oh my gosh. The girlies mentioned resources, and one thing that Columbia has, she has money, a lot of money. And I am here for that because, the amount of like, okay, so they do mock interviews, they do mock technical interviews. They have like this AI system that checks like your elevator pitches, your resumes, your LinkedIn, a whole bunch of stuff that I didn't know existed because HBCUs are like severely underfunded. So like their career services department is chef's kisses, chef's kisses. On top of that, oh my God, like grad school aside, New York City, I love her. I love her down. So many things to do in the city, like so much good food options. Oh, and caring faculty members. Like my algorithms teacher, she is so sweet. Like, oh, she really works with you and like meets you where you're at. Like even in like a sea of 200 students, she will make sure to like grab you aside and ask like, are you okay? Are you doing well? Like the other day I had like a teacher like run after me because I had like left, like it was like after class and there was like a long line of students, and me and my partner were working on this project, and we had like asked her a question like right before class began, and she was like, oh, I'll talk to you after class. We left the line. She literally ran after us and like asked us, is like everything okay? Like, do you need help? And like, I've never seen like a professor do that, like chase someone out the door to see if they were like still good and clear about like what they had going on in the class. Like, ooh, but yeah, that's the best thing for me about grad school. Resources and money. Yeah.
It sounds like that rings true for all of you. So thank you for sharing that. And for those who are listening, you know, it's a little different when you're in grad school. I like that. I like that you all are experiencing this as well, and also feeling valued. So Woomy, that's what it sounded like, you know, when you have a professor who's eager to learn a little bit more about what you need, you know, there's a value there, a sense of belonging. They want you there. So thank you for also sharing that. My next question is just in regards to work-life balance, because graduate school is work, the work that you choose and are wanting to do. But then beyond that, there is like the part where you have to take care of yourself. So we hear a lot about making sure that you're prioritizing self-care and really taking care of yourself in graduate school. So I'd like to hear from you all if you all are, if you've already explored what works best for you, or any ideas that you might be able to share with those who are tuned in. And I'll start with Jamya this time.
You know, I'm still working on that. Honestly, truly. Sometimes it feel like the work ain't never done. I ain't never done with the readings. I ain't never done applying for stuff. So I think that for me, it's like when I'm having a good time, like I like to have a good time. Like I work really hard. So when it comes to like spending time with family, like I'm gonna have a good time with family, and I'm gonna make sure that I've done all the work that I need to do so I can just like focus on that. If I'm spending time with friends, like I think that for me, it's acknowledging the fact that this program will go on, this school will go on, even if I'm gone. So prioritizing like my well-being is something that's really important to me. Making sure that I eat and my rent is paid. Those are things that are like that I must do. So I think in terms of work-life balance, it's really hard for me, but it is something that I have to kind of come to terms with, but I'm trying to get better at it. So like doing more planning, like I plan on Sundays of like, here's what my work week looks like. I'm trying to get to the point where like when it hits 6 o'clock, I'm done. Or when it hits 5:30, I'm done, but I'm not there yet. So yeah, it just, moral of the story is it comes with time, but it'll happen eventually.
Thank you so much for providing that perspective. I think that oftentimes we're expected to know everything, but it's a journey in life, you know, so we appreciate your vulnerability and saying, you know, it's not where it's at, but it will be. And that's the plan and goal, you know, so thank you for sharing that. Woomy, what's the work-life balance been like for you? Because I know that New York is a lot of fun, you know.
Work-life balance, there's no balance. This is balance. This is the fun. This is the work. And, you know, there was a work-life balance in undergrad, even though like I had like numerous like orgs and all that other stuff, but I was miserable in undergrad. And I told myself I would not stress myself at the graduate level. I said, I'm going to take care of myself. I'm going to have fun. And also being 21 plus, I'm going to have extreme fun. But, work-life balance. Wow. I try to at least dedicate like Friday to like Monday to doing work because I only have classes 3 days a week. But like I get out of class 9:30. I be tired. It's just is what it is. There's not much work-life balance. Not right now. Maybe next semester.
Hey, sometimes all that you can do is focus on the moment and focus on the now. And, you know, I think that if you're able to say, I'm not stressed out, like, and that's the priority for you, that's what works. And that is your balance. I think that sometimes we feel, like you said, that a balance is literally just equal, but sometimes a balance is like a pendulum and it does swing, and sometimes things are more prioritized, and that's your balance. And, you know, that's okay for you. And I think that What's healthy, to discuss is you creating what you feel works best for you, or setting aside those goals to getting to where you want to be, as Jamya also shared. But Calvin, I'd like to learn a little bit more from you about your work-life balance as well.
I think for me, I'm a big planner. So a lot of times, the one thing I love about graduate school is they were very strict about their timelines on things. So I've basically streamlined most of my assignments early. And then for me, I always dedicated one day to where if I had to stay up late, it was that one night. I'm very big on whatever is not done by 5:30, maybe push it to 6 if I'm like, all right, I can put extra 30 minutes and be done. But I shut down. Like, I'm like, it's time for me to have fun, time for me to, do what I need to do that day. And I think to me, that's what helped. Obviously, I mean, and they can attest to it too. There's probably sometimes in the semester where you put in a little bit more time, which is finals times and end of the semester, which once you do undergrad, you kind of understand that. But for the most part, for me, and what I've learned best for me is once it comes a certain time, if I plan ahead and it's nothing that doesn't pop up, I'm all about shutting down at 5:30 because if you don't prioritize yourself, things move on forward without you. And, I had to learn that personally kind of in undergrad where a few health scares just with, some chest pains because of so much stress. But I'm very big on just, let's shut it down.
Thank you so much for sharing that. And, also thinking about it from a health perspective and how like stress does lead to like high blood pressure and other health issues, especially prevalent within our communities. So I like that. And I think that I echo that same sentiment of, once the day is over, the day is over. I'll see you tomorrow, and I think that that's okay. And you have to decide if that's what works best for you. My next question for you all is just in regards to how did you know that your grad school was the right grad school for you? So I'll start Woomy, then go Calvin, then go Jamya.
If I'm gonna be honest, I still don't think it's almost right. Like it feels good. But then some days I just have like really down days while I'm in New York, and I'm just like, what would have happened if I went to Brown? Like, be for real. What would have happened? Do I think this is right? I mean, I love New York. Do I love Columbia all the way? I love the staff, the students, they're a little bit strange. Yeah, that's it for me. We're like 80% sure. Yeah, 80% sure.
All right. So Calvin, we'd love to hear a little bit more from you as well. If you can share a little bit how you knew that grad school was right for you.
I think for me, it was more so I had already kind of like socially understood the atmosphere of FAMU. So I was exiting that style and more so looking at things professionally. And right around the time that I decided to go to grad school, there was this big corporate push for people to care about HBCU students. So it kind of worked out well for me because I had dibbled and dabbled with recruiters and just pursued more fellowship ideas, as well as just kind of being around this push where HBCUs were now the thing to be. So from a standpoint where I looked at grad school and how I looked at grad school is how did this advance my career? And it did that just from the fellowships and things that I've gotten. And I would say that's how I knew it was right for me, just, being where I was comfortable, but then also saying, I'm not going to be comfortable in Tallahassee, but I'm going to expand, travel more for fellowships and just put more investment into my, career, professional skill set, toolbox to further and get those experiences that I didn't get in undergrad.
Thank you for sharing that as well. And it sounds like you also reach outside of your institution, utilizing the resources that they had to help you grow. So that's helpful to hear. And Jamya, I'd like to hear from you a little bit as well. Just how did you know that your grad school was the right one for you? And it's okay if you, if you echo the same sentiments as Woomy or Calvin as well.
Okay, so I knew that Notre Dame was the grad school for me when I was applying for it. A lot of the conversations that I had with other graduate programs, I didn't get the impression that I could actually like thrive and like survive in that space. But like when I met with faculty members here, like I left feeling like refreshed and like capable and like all these different things. So like after those conversations, I was like, okay, I can go to graduate school, like I can earn a PhD and I can become a doctor. So that was one of the things that like really resonated with me when it came to like making that decision of like, do I feel like I could be supported here? And my impression was that, yeah, like I could. So like my decision to even like choosing to go to graduate school was a little, like sporadic in the sense, like initially I was like, I'm going to law school. I did all the law school things. Like I was working with Ms. Kimbrough, shout out to Ms. Kimbrough, wherever she is in this world. Like I was a part of the pre-law program. So I was like doing all that stuff. And I got to a point where I had like visited multiple law schools. And I think like after my last one, I was like, do I really want to do this? I had sat in like contract law classes, like I did the whole thing. And I thought that the way that they were talking about like justice and like the criminal justice system and like law and all those things didn't necessarily resonate with the way that I understood society, the way that my experience with like the criminal justice system had like shaped my perspective and ideology towards those things. So I came to the point where I was like building a relationship with like my mentors who were professors at Dillard. And I came to the point where I was like, I have something to contribute. Like I have something that I could add to like academia, something that I could add to like the research on sort of like institutions in the way that we understand some of these like power dynamics, the way that we understand society. So once I got to that point where I was like, oh, I can add something versus like just being a recipient of like what other people think should happen in society. And I think that that's kind of where I was at with like the legal system, where I was like, okay, they're just trying to, like, they're just telling me what it should be. And I thought with graduate school, I can really get to like make the case myself for how society operates or like how it should operate. In addition to like the resources and the support to do that. So that's sort of where I got to the point of like going to Notre Dame and like being in the program that I am now, is I felt that I would have the mentorship and the support and the resources to do a lot of critical thinking that I, was doing a little bit in undergrad, but there wasn't the resources to do that. And the graduate school that I'm at now allows me to do those things.
Thank you so much for also sharing that. I think that it's helpful to know that your university is supporting you in some way, shape, or form, and helping you live out your actual professional goals. My next question is in regards to you being comfortable, so you getting out of your comfort zone. I know that for me, I'm from South Central Los Angeles, went to an HBCU in New Orleans, Louisiana, filled with a lot of culture, and then ended up in New Haven, Connecticut, which was a complete culture shock to me. I didn't necessarily feel welcome. There weren't that many people who looked like me on campus. And I remember my first year, I spent in a very, very dark and depressed place trying to figure out how to navigate inside of a culture that I wasn't accepted in. And then the second year I found my place and was able to really fight to make sure other people had access to the university, but they would also feel comfortable in the space. So I'd love to hear from you all on what it's been like to get out of your comfort zone, and any advice that you may have for students looking to attend. And I thought about it. I don't want you to have to feel like you're censoring yourself, because these experiences, grad school isn't easy. They often, or I wouldn't say they, I often think about it as a hard process, right? You know, you're consistently being critiqued and analyzed from an academic standpoint. You have to fight to figure out where you socially belong, because you're not an undergrad anymore where, you know, a lot of the clubs and organizations are curated for students and undergrads. So you're fighting to find your own community. But I'd love just to hear a little bit more from each of you about your comfort zone, getting out of your comfort zone while at graduate school, or if you feel that you haven't gotten out of your comfort zone. And I'll go Calvin, Woomy, then Jamya.
Well, for me, I think as far as comfort zone, I was in the position where I had to then like close my undergraduate career and like socially, even in the time of COVID. So when the world kind of lashed off a little bit, I was in my final semester, and, you know, as we say, people were outside. I wasn't outside because I was a graduate student, and I had to leave my fraternity alone when it came to the things that they had going on, because now Calvin, the graduate student, not Calvin, the undergrad, that's involved in 50 million clubs and SGA. Like, that wasn't me anymore. So I think the toughest thing for me was just seeing that happen and not having a role in that and closing that chapter. I think for me, that was the only thing that comfort, like outside of regular academic challenges of going through what that process was like, because my experience will be different from Woomy and Jamya. But I think for me, that was the biggest thing that I had to close, and then just addressing whatever worked for me in graduate school with learning, because learning in undergrad is different than learning in graduate school. And, you know, I can tell what worked for me was, you know, just like planning ahead. But, you know, when you're in the game making it happen, you find what works for you. And that's kind of what my biggest takeaways were.
Thank you so much for that. Woomy, what was it like for you to get out of your comfort zone? Or have you gotten out of your comfort zone?
Ooh, okay. Dang. I'm not gonna lie, I already know my field is very wide and well, but being one of 3 Black students in my program, it can be sad some days. And like, I know them, we're friends. One of them I literally did the mathematics degree with her at Clark. So we're in this together, and we have another friend that's with us too. But woo, them non-Blacks, they do not really care to interact with you. And sometimes they will make you like question the quality of the work, even though like they're a novice to like what they're doing, even if you might have more experience than them. There's been like so many times where I've been like questioned, oh, are you sure this is correct? And like they'll hear the same answer from one of their other peers. They'll be like, oh, they won't question it. Had that experience so many times, even like fitting in to like different social groups here on campus. Not every Black folk you need to be around. I'm so sorry. The Ivy League schools just attract like a certain type of student that I just can't get behind. It's just a lot. It's just a lot. And then New York too, on top of that. New York, I don't know. I think of New York City as the Florida of the Northeast. It's a lot of wild things that be happening in this city. I just be like, oh, okay. All right. Okay. We see you. We see you, Miss Girl. Anyways, that's it for me.
Thank you for also sharing that. You know, I think that, you know, a part of getting out of our comfort zone is recognizing, you know, that there are so many other types of people in communities that we normally don't get to interact with. And, you know, being able to navigate that space is usually not the easiest, but it sounds like you're faring well, and also that you have a support system, even if it's just the three of you all, which is incredibly helpful and healthy to your journey. And also, I think that that's something else we don't talk about as Black people when we go to graduate school, especially at an institution where everyone doesn't look like us, is your question about your work. I know that I don't know how many times I had to force myself to get over the mad, angry Black woman trope because I had to defend myself in whatever statements I may have made in class, or any pushback that I may have gotten. So thank you for bringing up that part, because it's something that we don't really talk about within our community. We say go to grad school, but we don't talk about the nuances of what that means or what you can potentially experience. And I think that, you sharing that is a piece of you getting out of your comfort zone. How do I navigate me saying something, someone questioning it, and then someone else repeating the same thing and, almost getting applause for it, so thank you for sharing that. And Jamya, I'd love to hear from you about how you've gotten out of your comfort zone, or if you're out of your comfort zone.
So Notre Dame is a very conservative, it's a super Catholic, super wealthy school. And those are all the things that I'm not. I grew up in a low income, predominantly Black, segregated area in Chicago, on top of the fact that I went to a HBCU. So a lot of this is out of my comfort zone. And although I live in the city of South Bend is 25% Black, the oppression and the subjugation of Black people here is also significantly different from what's it's similar, but it's different in the sense of political power and spaces for Black professionals in South Bend. So a lot of it has been out of my comfort zone, on top of being in this space where people don't respect me, they don't respect my contribution, they do all this very subtle acts of disrespect that it's hard to identify, but that it's disrespectful. So the rules are a bit different. So in terms of stepping out of my comfort zone, a lot of it has been going into myself, investing in people that care about me. So spending time with people that love me and I love them. That's my go-to. And I have a lot of graduate students of color here, primarily Black women who support me here, even if they're not in my program, even if they're not here physically. So I lean on them a lot. But in terms of navigating that, I've had issues with, y'all said, I'll say something and someone else will say the exact same thing. And I'm oh my gosh, that's brilliant right there. That right there is great. So I'm pivoting. I do a lot of listening. I do a lot of reading. So when I come, I have the citations, I have the page numbers, I have the books, and you can tell that the way that these institutions are set up, the way that learning is done, it is very exclusionary. It is very anti-Black. It is very classist. It's very sexist. All these, all the things that, especially in sociology, what's is supposed to be perceived as a very progressive discipline. A lot of these power dynamics still exist here. So when I come in this space, I do a lot of listening. I prioritize myself and my well-being. I give myself grace, even when other people don't. So even though I'm out of my comfort zone, a lot of it is making sure that I'm comfortable in myself and I'm comfortable in my ability to do the work. Everything else, I don't have time to be trying to convince people that they shouldn't be racist. I don't have time with trying to comfort even Black people. I don't have time to do that, because I know I didn't come here to do that. I came here to get a PhD program, to get a PhD. So my priority is always to support the people in my community, make sure they're good, but also make sure I'm good, because at the end of the day, even if I die, this institution is still gonna run and it's still gonna be anti-Black. So I'm just chilling.
Thank you for sharing that as well. And, for each of you for being vulnerable, because I know that talking about getting out of your comfort zone isn't easy, but then also talking about your own lived experience and what you're currently going through now isn't the easiest, but I think it's insightful for those who are tuned in to understand all aspects of going to grad school, especially when you're attending an institution where everyone doesn't look like you. So thank you for that. My next question, and I have like one question after that, but why should viewers consider attending graduate school? I'll start with Woomy, then go Calvin, then Jamya.
If you got a knack for learning, I say do it. Yeah, if you got a knack for learning like me, do it. But also, in this day and age, the price of a bachelor's degree is going down, and it's becoming very hard to get a job with just a bachelor's degree. So higher education is the move for social mobility and all that other stuff.
Thank you for sharing that, because that is a great point that, as the industry changes, as the market becomes a little bit more volatile, it helps to be able to leverage extra skills or extra certifications, or like a degree that shows that you actually spent more time on a subject to put yourself in a position as a viable candidate for a role. So I love that you also mentioned the social mobility part, and then also the social capital that comes along with going to graduate school and the relationships that you get to build across the way. So whether with faculty and staff or with peers and colleagues as well. So thank you.
I wanted to add upon the social capital point that you made. Going to a school with that high of a name, just having that on your resume just opens doors for you. Like, it opens doors.
I can see that. And, I think that's important, is when you're selecting a grad school, be mindful, of where you're going and how you're able to leverage the graduate school as well. So you're adding value to the graduate school by being there, but on the opposite end, you want the school to also work in your favor too. So thank you for adding that. We'll go Calvin, then Jamya.
Well, I always tell people, first off, I recommend you get it young, because that, like she said, that investment will pay off a lot later. And then secondly, I would say, especially if you're kind of in a weird space where you're trying to figure things out, graduate school is kind of like a second wave to undergrad, to where now you have a little bit more free time to really dive deeper in, like, what exactly do you want to do? Because you can get a degree where it may not be as specific as, like, you want to be a doctor or an engineer, where that, like, this is the base of what I want to do. Not myself, but a lot of my friends that end up going to graduate school, they took that time to really say, I want to hone in and focus on, like, they got the MBAs, I want to be more finance, I want to be more HR. So I tell people, you don't really have a set goal on what you want to do, go to graduate school, so that gives you about an extra year or two to really hone in on what you want to do, because you're still young, you're still figuring things out, and you're not really as, like, specific or focused, or with, like, heavy responsibilities to where you can't make that career pivot like you can while you're young. You still can, but it takes a lot more planning.
Thank you for sharing that. And, I think that that's totally fine. I know some people go, well, don't go to graduate school if that's the reason. But honestly, it's an opportunity, as Woomy said, and as you just said, for you to learn, so utilize that year or two, or even 7 years if you're in a PhD program, to do a deep dive of what you're actually passionate about, continue to build those relationships, and then see where it leads you. So I appreciate you for sharing that. Jamya, how about you?
Yeah, not to, be a broken record, but to sort of echo what my two other panelists have said, of, like, it's an investment. Social mobility is great. Financial stability is great. the opportunity to learn is also like very important. So like that passion for learning can get you far. And I'm hesitant to say that like they need you, but Lord, they need you. They need more Black academics, and they need sort of like the diversity of thought within the field. And it's a very violent space. I cannot lie to the people. It is very violent. But it is like it's an investment. So it's work. And I think that like doing it when you can and you feel that you're capable of like being in this space is also like something very important to consider. And I know a lot of it is sort of like a lack of like knowing what happens in graduate school, or like not even really understanding like what a PhD is. So, you know, you miss every shot that you don't take, but the fact that like people are willing to invest in you is something that's very important, especially when you are younger and you have the experience and you have sort of that drive to get through this program. Because I do think that having those skills and having that experience is, or that mindset specifically, is very beneficial when you thinking about going to graduate school.
Thank you for sharing that as well, and also just being honest. I guess my last question for you all is, do you have any words of advice for listeners about what they can do to be prepared? If they are already accepted into graduate school, you know, anything that you would like to just share with our listeners about graduate school? I'll go Calvin, Jamya, then Woomy.
My advice to you is, one, be prepared to read a lot, and read a lot. Really dedicate more time to study than you probably did in undergrad, because that was one of the biggest learning curves that I had to realize, to where you're spending more time idle than you are hands-on. And secondly, I would say, when you go, make sure, you know, like they all said, you got a graduate assistant position. Make sure these institutions are paying you for you attending that school, because they have the money. Like, don't believe, like, really go in and say, if you want me here, you'll pay for it. I mean, I wouldn't say it like that, but, you know, give that messaging out, because those two things, if those two things are set up to where your money's straight, and then you really take the time to learn, everything else will fall itself in line. Because once your grades are right, fellowships, you know, relationships with the professors will come to where they'll invite you into research, other opportunities. If you do those two things, your graduate experience will be amazing. At least the academic side. Socially, you know, that's really up to you, and how like you want to be socially portrayed and who you want to interact with socially, because everyone's experience is different. But at least on the academic side, if you do those two things, I think you'll have a great experience.
Thank you, Calvin, for that. Jamya, any words of advice?
Yes. So before you apply, I think you should take clear note of like who is present when you're like doing these sort of like campus visits, what they're saying, what they're not saying, what are some of the like foundational resources, like do they have a Black Graduate Student Union? Do they have scholarships for like conference travel? Do they have fellowships? What is the process for applying for these fellowships? Like, do they have research centers? So like, these are some of the things that you don't recognize that you need until you really need them. Do they have healthcare? Sometimes you don't know until you know? So like making sure they have sort of like those basic needs, I think is very important. Once you're there, you need to build a community, you need to get a bag, you're here for graduate school, people will try to rope you into doing diversity and inclusion stuff. That's not your job unless they're trying to run a bag. People will try to play in your face. You don't have to do that unless you want to do that. If you do decide to do that, please be able to deal with what that means for your ability to do your work and your ability to like sit with yourself even when like all these things are over. So like being comfortable in yourself is something that takes time. But I do think like surrounding yourself with great people, surrounding yourself with work that is like very important to you. So like doing your readings, like Calvin said, is very important. Like people will weaponize the space on you, time in and time out. It's warfare. The classroom can get really rough. So I recommend that you do the readings that you need to do, so you too can like participate in sort of that conflict when it comes to that point. So, just be ready so you don't ever have to, get ready is something that I think is very important. And also don't be afraid to ask for what you need. So if you need money for like conference travel, like if you need money to travel, if you need like healthcare stuff, like find the resources that you need in advance. So that's some of my advice. Another piece of advice for the people that's trying to get to know the field that they're in, sociology has like annual reviews. So if you're interested in things like culture, race, or even like more specific things, I recommend like looking into like research databases or like research journals, because they'll have like articles that like cover everything that you want to know in that specific topic. And you can just, like you can learn about it before you are forced to like spend like 5 years studying something that you might not be interested in. And finally, if you're looking for a school, make sure it's in a place where you can see yourself living for 5 years. Because for PhD programs, make sure you can live. You are a young person and you're worthy of like, even if you're not young, like you're a person, you're worthy of like being happy. So just making sure that you find a place that makes you happy or like happy enough.
Thank you so much just for sharing those pieces of advice. I think that not only are they substantiated, they're important to also know. So everything from staying ready so that you don't have to get ready, understanding that some of the biggest fights do take place in the classroom, because that's what ultimately goes on to set the precedents for the rest of the world. So that's why it's really important when you're in grad school to really be prepared. But then beyond that, like you said, finding joy, joy is an act of resistance. I received that bag from someone as a gift recently, and I look at it every day, because to choose joy is an active choice. And when you're in graduate school, it's even more important because it's not dangled in front of you. It's not like, when you're in undergrad and you're at homecomings on campus, all these activities are planned. It's not like that in graduate school, where it's planned for you. So being intentional about finding joy and happiness is key. And then I wanted to see, Woomy, did you have any pieces of advice that you'd like to share?
Oh, they said a lot of good things, but me, always be true to yourself. Don't compromise yourself nor your morals. Yeah. Oh, especially for the girls that's trying to go to PWIs, do not try to make yourself palatable to them folks. Do not, because the first opportunity they get, they will leave you behind. I'm so serious. Oh, another piece of advice. Okay, so there's a lot of master's programs that aren't fully funded. The PhD girlies be telling me this. Apply for a PhD and Jamya knows what I'm talking about. No, listen, apply for a PhD and just stay there to get your master's and then just leave the program. I hate to say it, but education is very expensive in America. It costs $90K to go to Columbia. Thankfully, I go here for free, but y'all got $90K? Do y'all have $100K? Get the bag and leave. Get that bread, then leave. Amen. God bless.
I second that.
I guess that it sounds like a word to beat King too. So
yeah.
Thank you for that. I just want to take the time out to thank each of you for just being vulnerable enough to share this experience. I feel like I want to brag a little bit because each of y'all served as interns for HBCU 20x20, and like just to see how much y'all have grown. Oh my God, it's so amazing. Like amazing to me. Like, so I'm proud of each of you. I hope that those who listen really walk away with a better sense of what to expect when it's time to go to grad school, if grad school is the move that they actually want to make, and then also just thinking beyond grad school. So that said, I want to just thank you all again. If y'all have any questions or want to reach out to them, we'll make sure that their information is accessible, and you can connect with them. But other than that, thank you all just for tuning in to Should I Attend Graduate School? Okay.